This is WCBG, broadcasting live from Wagner College in Staten Island, New York. WCBG, small college, big voice. This is Jeanine, and today's interview is with the home team. So I've actually been vibing really hard with their music. They have a lot of great stuff, and their album, Better Off, is fantastic. If you haven't listened to it, you should definitely check it out. And stay tuned for this interview. So what we're going to start with, introduce yourselves for me, please, and tell me a fun fact about you.
Ooh. I am Brian. I'm the singer of the home team. And I'm currently halfway through a big tattoo sleeve that is incredibly expensive.
My name is Daniel. I play drums, and Brian was the first person to buy our first EP before he joined the band.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that.
2 facts about Brian.
2 facts about Brian. I'm mysterious.
Okay, I have a question that we asked at our freshman orientation, and it's a pretty interesting question. It helps break the ice a bit. If you can be any item in the kitchen, what would you be and why?
Daniel, you'd probably be a lemon zester.
Wow. If I could be any... I would want to be a heat-resistant spatula, so that way I could resist all of the burns that my bandmates constantly throw at me.
Oh my god.
Man, I want to be a Santoku knife. It's just like the best of the best. What can I say?
Plays Sekiro once.
So, can you guys tell me a little bit about how you formed?
Yes,
Daniel,
I will cover that.
Okay.
So the home team started with my guitarist John and I. We used to play in a hardcore band called Open Fire in like 2009, 2010. And while we were in that band, he wrote some demos just on a program called Guitar Pro. He wrote some pop punk demos that were really, really bad, and he sent them to me. And we hashed some song ideas out, just with like this idea of starting a pop punk band because we had always played in metal and hardcore, so we wanted to try something new. Then our respective metal bands after that band that we were in together started doing more. So we both started touring a lot, and we kind of put the home team on hold. Then in about 2013, we decided to start it back up full time. A couple lineup changes later, and we eventually found Brian. He was the second like full-time singer that the band had. And in 2018, we put out our first full-length record. We did 2 EPs before that.
Super exciting. What's the local scene like where you're from? You're from Washington State, right?
Yeah, there are a lot of metalcore and hardcore bands in Seattle. It's a really big indie scene too. There aren't a ton of bands that are in like the kind of Warped Tour pop punk crowd. It's probably like 6 or 7 that we see pretty regularly in our area. The metalcore scene is really thriving though in our area for sure.
I love
Indie, kind of like your indie, beanie folded up 4 times crowd. That's huge in Seattle.
I love asking this question because I get to live vicariously through everyone else, because where I'm from, there's like no scene. It's pretty sad. Especially, I don't know if you know, but School of Rock was filmed at my school, and like you would think that music would be bigger than it is here, but it's not.
No way. I just read an article about Miranda Cosgrove the other day and how her career has not gone according to plan, and she's not the superstar everyone expected her to be.
I don't know why she's not. She's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, School of Rock was filmed here. I never realized the impact it had on people until I started doing interviews and talking to people about it. And it's kind of nice to see that, like, music is this great connectivity factor, and it's wonderful.
That's
Agreed.
dope.
So if you didn't become a musician, what would you be doing?
Oh, Dan, you got plenty of things.
uh, if I were not a musician, I would probably be doing most of the things that I am currently doing outside of being a musician. Uh, I have a startup with a couple partners. I used to manage bands and I kind of gave that up. Long story. I just started managing some like YouTube and Twitch streamer people. I have a little side business printing T-shirts. Uh, I do a lot of stuff, but the main thing, if I was not a musician, I would probably be making more money.
Yeah, he's right. Um, if I was not a musician, at this point, I'd probably be working for Fremont Brewing Company, or just some trendy, bougie brewery in Seattle. I really enjoy craft beer. It's fun to, especially when you travel a lot. I travel for my job, and then I also travel for home team. Obviously, you get to try a lot of different beer around the country. I'd also probably be fatter because of that.
The
I
pressure
take that
to
back. I
be a
would
fit
for
rock
sure.
god will be gone.
Right. I would for sure be fatter if I was brewing beer.
I would say though, probably the two big things that I would do more of, to satisfy like my creative or to like be my creative outlet, I would probably put way more time and energy into like streaming on Twitch. And I would probably take more marketing tours. Brian and I do a very similar thing for work. And one of the things that I turned down a lot because I need to keep my availability open for touring with the band is doing a marketing tour. So I'd probably take up more of those.
So, what music are you currently listening to?
Ooh. Well, as a band, um, I don't think any of us have put down Don Broco yet. It's one of our favorite collective bands to listen to. But me personally, funny enough, I listen to almost no pop punk. I listen to like lo-fi, uh, like the chill hot beats to study to playlists on
Mm-hmm.
Spotify. I genuinely listen to those, like not just like in the background, but I'll listen to them because there's there's a ton of really cool chord progressions and instrumentation in that style of music that I think a lot of people overlook. There's an artist called Byrocratic. He's in New York, um, and he introduces so many cool instruments to these, I guess, quote unquote beats. But by the time he's done with them, they're fully fleshed out songs. Um, I just find that style of music to be really stimulating. And in fact, it's actually inspired a lot of vocal parts that I've written. I'll hear a really cool progression, and I'll just start singing over it, and I'll be like, "Oh, this is actually similar tempo, similar vibe to this song that John just sent me. This instrumental song. I'm gonna use it." It's very inspirational, and it is better than most people give it credit for.
The band that I listen to the most lately is From Indian Lakes. That's one of my favorite bands right now. I've I've been going to their shows since like 2012 when they used to play small DIY shows to now they play like some of our bigger venues in Seattle. Listen to a lot of that. Aside from music, I listen to a lot of podcasts. So honestly, I haven't been listening to a ton of music as of late. Uh, I don't really like to listen to a lot of music while I'm driving because I'm around music so much just with playing it that I get kind of bored.
No, I definitely understand that. But I'm the type of person that I'll listen to a track on repeat while I'm studying just because it'll just be in the background. But
Nice.
I feel like,
Very cool.
yeah, the staff makes fun of me. If it's on the radio, I don't know what it is. And I feel like I sometimes pigeonhole myself into listening to certain genres. Like, Funny story. Yesterday,
Yeah.
I was in my dorm room and I was actually playing your music, and
Hey, thanks.
Oh,
my suite mate was coming up the stairs, and our floor is super quiet, and she was like, I heard you playing music from the hallway, and I knew it was you because obviously, like, this is what you listen to. And I was like, oh, thank you. And some people on our floor have actually, like, made comments like, oh, you listen to some really nice stuff that I probably wouldn't listen to. So the floor has heard your music.
that's cool. That's awesome.
Of course, I love talking to people
Appreciate
about
it.
their music, and for me, it's super important. Like, I have to connect with the song, or like connect with the lyrics, or just even how it's produced and the instrumentals. And music has to speak to me. Like, that's why I love reaching out to people. So, thank you guys for writing
Sweet.
tracks that are exceptional.
Yeah. I'm glad you like them.
Can you tell me a little about the process for writing your album?
Sure. It's actually changed pretty drastically over the last few years. The process for Better Off was it was a lot of minds, and to be honest, it wasn't a ton of like actual collaboration. It was we had we had Ryan at the time, who was our other guitarist. We had Rob, who was our bassist, um, and Rob contributed most of the more pop punk sounding songs. So he had written the instrumentals for "She's Quiet," and then I kind of came in and put my spin on it instrumentally, and then obviously the vocals. Um, he wrote the instrumentals for "Ageless," and a couple other pop punky sounding ones, and Ryan helped write some of the more rock riffs. John probably wrote the most. He wrote like Jack of All Trades and Since We
Since
All
we
Fell
all fell
Apart.
apart.
Yeah. And he uh anyway, we would basically get a collection of these ideas together, go to Ryan's house, and then I would put vocals on them. And so that's why the record sounds pretty it sounds pretty drastically different across it. It's pretty dynamic, which I don't dislike. I definitely for the next record want to aim for a little more of a cohesive sound, and that's probably where it'll go. But it's yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience. Basically, it's kind of like a lot of bands where the instrumentalists will pitch a song and then I will take it and write my vocals to it. Sometimes I'll even be like, hey, I'm not really feeling this. Like, it's not really doing anything for me. I will like make a couple changes to it, whatever I need, and then I'll go back to it and finish it out. But the process took a while for Better Off. It was probably like 2 years of writing. I think Fashion Forward's probably the oldest song on that. Maybe Fashion Forward and Jack of All Trades. Fashion Forward was the only one that I wrote instrumentally. And it was, yeah, I wrote that when I was in college, and we kind of put it on the back burner and then came back to it. But yeah, basically it was a collection of a lot of minds coming together. That's what I can sum it up as.
Waiting Game was a song that we had for a really long time. That was like back when we released our first EP. We had some of those riffs written and we just sat on them and didn't really like how it turned out. And then we finally, came up with a structure that we actually liked, and it ended up on Better Off. That's another one that had been sitting around for a long time.
Yeah, I guess that is probably the oldest song now that I think about it, because I remember seeing that demo in there for a long time.
And then Jack of All Trades, we had written when we did our first EP with you in that we put out in 2016, 2017. Because we did an acoustic version of it on that EP and then did the full band on Better Off.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with what you said, that it was a very dynamic album, but at the same time, I feel like you guys were like solidifying your sound and finding the direction you want to go in the future. And
Nice.
Yeah, a lot of the tracks, even though they have a different feel to it, they have this cohesive vibe in the sense of like the story you're trying to tell, or at least that's what I got out of it. Like, there was this overarching story, but
Yeah, you're completely right.
Okay.
Better Off is a collection of different intertwining stories of similar people. It's basically about my college life. That's what Better Off is all about. There is actually a chronological order that I have written up on my notes. It's probably far back by now, but there's an order that is not the order of the track list, where not the order that we wrote it in, but where the meaning takes place in this big long story. And I think the latest song in that chronological order is still When I'm in College. And that was, I probably graduated 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Yeah. But yeah, it's basically about a bunch of stuff that happened to me in college.
Do you mind if I ask what you guys majored in college?
Yeah, I majored in marketing.
I majored in entrepreneurship.
Nice. I feel like those both kind of relate to being in the music industry and like being in a band.
Yeah, I mean, a band is a business. As much as people, there's a kind of a stigma between around like being an artist and not being a quote unquote real job. Like, one of the parts that I enjoy most about being a band is the building the brand and building like the business. So I handle most of the business side of things, and just watching it grow is like one of the things that I enjoy the most. Because as far as like playing music, when you tour, you only play music 25 minutes a night. The other 23 and a half hours, you're doing tons of other things, a lot of sitting around in the van and a lot of driving. But keeping up on social media, planning the next thing, planning interviews like this. There's lots of other things that are involved in it, and so that's where we use a lot of our like business sense that we got from college in building the band.
That makes a lot of sense, and you guys are doing a great job. So.
Thanks.
Oh, word. Thanks
for trying.
I definitely think I've used a little bit of my degree in this as well. Daniel and I kind of form a duality of, he is definitely the businessman and I am a little more of the creative. And it's funny, it is actually reflective of our degrees. Because he'll be like, oh yeah, we need to make a post. What about this? I'm like, well, how does that feel? What's the branding? I'll be like the head in the class. It's like, well, I don't know. Dan will be like, we need to post. But we all have our functions. And well, funny enough, John has a journalism degree, and he doesn't use that at all.
I actually have a question from our PR director, Grace. We normally ask this question in our interviews because we want to start a conversation about this. So, what is your opinion of releasing an artist's unreleased music after they've passed away? Should it be released or should it not?
Whoa. Is this about Matt Miller?
This was actually about a Little Peep song, but I don't listen to Little Peep, but she was like, here you go.
Gotcha.
I have a response to this. I think that an artist's music after they pass away should absolutely be released. I think where the real ethical question comes in is, should the label be making profits off of their music when the artist is no longer around? And where do the royalties go to the artist? That is, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that. That's a really complicated topic. I don't see any reason why their music should not be released. And in the case of, someone like Michael Jackson, or, some pop star that's been dead for a while, the record label and he was more than just a person. It was a brand, and there were millions and millions of dollars invested by tons of people around him. There's definitely a strong case to be made that the people, like the brand surrounding him, should live on, but there's also a case to be made like the money that he should have been or that he would have received had he still been alive. Should that go to his family? Should that go to a charity in his name, a foundation, his heirs? Who knows? That, I think, is the big debate to which I don't have a good answer.
I wish I could add more. That's actually pretty much exactly how I feel too. I also agree that I think, like, if I died, I would definitely want my unreleased music to be released. Unfortunately, there's the fact that you don't get to make the fine tuning that you might want because you have passed away. But usually, by the time you're at that level, there are trusted people that you're probably writing your songs with, producing your songs with. That I'm guessing that these artists would have wanted to finish these songs for them. Michael Jackson's a really good case because I think they've been releasing Michael Jackson music since he died.
Yeah, and he has a Vegas show that is constantly sold out. Like, it's a hologram since he's been dead. But like,
for sure,
his music lives on. You know, he has one of the highest selling, I think, Thriller. I don't know if it's still the highest selling record of all time, but you know, he was the top grossing artist for like, you know, a decade at least. And so just because he passed away, should the label and his management and his agency and everything, should they like not be able to profit off of the money and time that they put into building him? I don't know. That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
Anyone who says there is a black and white answer to this is like, they're wrong. There's strong cases to be made either direction. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the reasons we want to ask this, we know it's super complex. And like for us, obviously we're just on the receiving end of hearing music. Like as a fan, you always want to hear more music, but would the artist actually be happy? And then sometimes it's kind of complicated because if you think about it, like what does the contract say? Like demos you guys write, does the label own all of the demos? Or like those like we've got this compared to like Kurt Cobain's journal, and people are like, oh my god, what about the bedroom recordings that people are doing on their laptops or like as a voice memo? Like
that's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, every contract is different. I'm sure when you start talking about like, you know, the pop stars on major labels, like everything they do is owned by someone. Like they don't have any private bedroom recordings that like the label technically would own that, I'm sure. Otherwise, you know, what's to stop Ariana Grande from releasing a bedroom pop record on her own and just, you know, making millions of dollars because she tried a new genre? Like, I'm sure the label has, you know, contracts in place to protect themselves against that. In short, I think the music should be released. I think there's a heavy debate on where the money should go. I think probably the most reasonable answer is to stick to the contract that was already in place, or maybe the label just decides to start a scholarship or a charity or something and donate profits in their name. Seems reasonable.
So what I would like you to do for me is to describe your sound in 3 words.
Oh my goodness.
I know it's another hard question.
Daniel, would you agree that we can put rock as the first one? Is that a good starting point?
That you said 3 words.
Well, you can both do 3 words if you want.
Oh, I was just gonna say Fall Out Boy.
Yeah, actually, that's a good one.
Not in that musically we sound like Fall Out Boy, but that inspiration wise, we never got over that phase.
Yeah, in some sense. Yeah, you're right. I hate to use the example of another band, but this only counts as 1 word, Paramore.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess in terms of writing style. Yeah, I mean, pop, rock, catchy. I don't know. I guess I'm gonna go with dance. I'm gonna go with Fall Out Boy.
Okay.
And that's just kind of like the quintessential band to sum up the era of music that we grew up listening to. We have a really interesting dynamic because our guitarist John is the oldest in the band, and he's 7 years older than Brian. So like they grew up in very different musical time periods. So Brian, what makes a lot of our stuff interesting is that John's influences and Brian's influences are very different. So what inspired John to start doing pop punk, which is basically Fall Out Boy, is not necessarily what, they were an established band when Brian started like getting into this type of music. None of our music sounds like you wouldn't listen to it and be like, oh, this band is just ripping off Fall Out Boy, right? It's musically and vocally very different inspirations, which is what I think makes it interesting.
I definitely agree. I can hear different types of, not even punk, but even like rock influence in specific parts of the songs. And it's pretty interesting because I feel like the lyrics are more punk, but the tracks are, I guess, more like alternative based. Like if that makes any sense, but that's what I got out of it.
Totally.
Okay, cool. So what is your favorite part of a song that you've written? It could be a lyric, it could be a riff, it could be a drum cadence.
Oh, my favorite part of a song. Like one specific part of one specific song?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I actually think about this sometimes. I'm going to be mysterious and cryptic and say it's one of the new ones. But I'm better off. I would have to say one of the first thing that comes to my mind, it might not, I might think about it later and be like, well, actually, but the first thing that comes to my mind is the lyrical build in the song Something to Hold On To. At the end, it's all building to this one climax of God, what is my own lyric? And I never showed her the only way out was for her to learn to love herself. If you listen to the song, the end of the first verse and the end of the second verse, it builds to that cumulative sentence. Because I think I never showed her that. I never showed her the only way out. And then finally, I never showed her the only way out was for her to learn to love herself. I think the reason I like that is because I've never meant a lyric more than that one. And it's something, it kind of haunts me because it's something that, given the story behind that song, had I gone back and told myself that sentence 2 years prior to writing that song, I could have saved myself a lot of grief. I could have saved her in that song a ton of grief. It's a powerful lyric for me. But other than that, I really dig the bridge of Fashion Forward. Yeah.
For me, I'd have to say there's a drum fill near the end of Fashion Forward that is my favorite thing on Better Off, just because it was something way out of my comfort zone, and it just on first listen, it doesn't sound very complicated, but I'm not going to explain to you the sticking pattern and everything on the phone. But it's something that I had never done before, and it was just a little groove that a buddy of mine showed me that I've managed to work in a pretty seamless way into the song. And it's like one of those little moments in a part that's not that complicated that any drummer will hear that and just be like, oh, I see what you did there. So that's my favorite part. It's a fill at the end of Fashion Forward.
I was going to ask Daniel, are you talking about that one?
No. It's in the last chorus before it goes to like the pre-chorus again.
It's
in the final chorus, like the do-do-do-do-da-do-da, that section.
Oh, got it. Okay, I remember that one.
It starts on crash and kick, but it's like a snare, both toms and kick, and it just does an interesting pattern in the way that it like replaces the toms in the fill with a kick in there, and it like does the whole like right two soft notes on the left hand and then accented notes alternating between the hands and kick. And it's
got it. My next question for you is: you mentioned earlier when you guys are like driving around what you listen to. What are top 3 songs to have on like a road trip?
Mmm. Ooh, The Light in the Glass by Coheed and Cambria. It's like 10 minutes long.
Uh,
Uh,
Duel of Fates from Star Wars
yeah!
soundtrack.
I'm for it.
John Williams, baby. Um, oh, let's see. Man, that's the thing. For a road trip, I usually go by albums. Am I allowed to pick albums instead? Like
Sure.
whole albums? That's what I'm talking about. Uh, I will say, uh, not In Keeping Secrets, but Good Apollo and Burning Star 4 Volume 1 from Pure Theater of Madness by Coheed and Cambria. That one's dope to listen to all the way through, and it's long. Um, I'm kind of a prog head. I grew up listening to like proggy indie, weird metal. And another one is a band called The Deer Hunter. I would probably say The Color Spectrum is a really good one to listen to on a drive because it's 36 songs, but it's a really cool concept. It's 9 4-song EPs collected. Each one is a different color of the color spectrum, and they all sound very similar to that color. Like you hear it and you're like, yeah, this sounds red. This sounds like deep red. And you hear this and you're like, oh, this is blue for sure. I can hear like ocean waves and shit like that. Um, that's a really cool album to listen to on the drive. And then lastly, I'll go with On Letting Go by Circus Survive.
That's a good one. I'm just gonna say Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire because that's the audiobook I'm on.
Right on.
Dude, the Deer Hunter is like it's like if you asked someone if they liked rock music and they said yes, and so you said, okay, well here's a 20-minute jazz section.
That's pretty.
Like, I guess
Dude,
this has rock instruments in it for a bit.
it's dope.
I just my brain is too small to comprehend what is happening.
No, I would say Coheed is more complicated than the Deer Hunter.
No, I mean they
But
stay within a style. Like
yeah,
Coheed sounds
for
like
sure.
Coheed. The Deer Hunter is like, oh cool, sweet, like kind of heavy rock thing, and then it's 180. Where is like we're in the 20s now.
Yes, you are correct. They are definitely more dynamic than Coheed. Coheed is definitely got their own rock thing going. But I love it. It's so good. All right, Daniel, you got one more.
Oh, I was not prepared.
It's okay.
You said Duel of
Um,
Fates and Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. The last one, I'd say a classic for me is Meshuggah's Obzen. Because we don't play metal anymore, we listen to a lot more heavy music in the van. Like when I used to play in a metal band, we never listened to metal in the van because every show was, 5 hours of metal, and I have no desire to listen to that anymore. But now that every show is like lots of pop rock, when we get in the van, lots of metal. So Meshuggah's Obzen.
That's a good one. But you talking about big brain music.
Yeah, that's true. It's big brain, but you can also listen to it without really understanding what's going on because it's just very aggressive and heavy.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
You mentioned an audiobook earlier. What's your favorite book?
Uh, my favorite book, I'd have to say, is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I forget the author, but that was a book I read in college on a management class, and that changed my perspective on a lot of things.
Interesting. I'll have to check it out.
I don't think I have a favorite book.
I don't know how to
Unfortunately.
read.
I just don't know how to read. I'm kidding. I really like David Sedaris. I know it's cliche almost for a Seattleite to be like, oh yeah, you ever read David Sedaris? but he's so funny.
Big 50 Shades of Grey fan?
Me?
I don't know who David Sedaris is. I was just guessing that
Oh
you liked
no,
50 Shades of Grey.
that's funny. No. David Sedaris is a comedian. But he's really thought provoking, and he's written a bunch of books. I recommend him. He's
Okay.
really good.
Gotcha. I listen to audiobooks mostly. Honestly, I can't remember the last time I read an actual book straight up. I just don't find myself doing that, which is funny because my girlfriend reads like a book a week.
Yeah,
I feel like
Terry's
audiobooks.
nuts.
Ooh, I feel like audiobooks and like reading a book in front of you are completely different experiences.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure, because I fall asleep while reading an actual book.
there's something about it.
That's what it's
So
like for me.
relaxing.
Hmm.
I do. I totally do.
Okay, you guys went
Word.
on tour for Better Off. Can you please tell me a little bit about tour?
Yeah, we did a few tours post Better Off. We were actually on tour right before the album came out. It was a tour with a band called who is no longer a band. They were called Rest Repose. They they have now become Dragged Under, who is on tour with the Used right now. They that tour was really cool because it was their first full US tour. Um, and we had a slightly different lineup at the time. Um, we, as a band, we don't really fight, which is, I'm so grateful for that because we can spend weeks together in a van with the same people and we don't fight. However, on that tour, it kind of pushed our limits. And since then, we learned a lot about ourselves, and we've done a variety of tours since that one, and they've all been cake as far as getting along, having fun, and that's the thing that I'm really grateful for about this band is that we just don't have a ton of drama. We don't like drama. We'd rather have a good time and we have fun. Like there's so many bands that we toured with where once they are done with what they're doing, they just go back to the hotel and just sit there. I was like, what are you doing? We're in New Orleans. Let's go have fun.
Right.
And so it's like one thing if you want to go relax because you're tired, you're exhausted. It's another thing if you're just boring.
Dude, I
Um,
would say like regular people spend thousands of dollars to take vacations to the places that we play music in. So like, yeah, I get it. If we're in, Fargo, North Dakota, maybe there's not a ton of historical sightseeing for us to go see. But you better bet along the way we went to Mount Rushmore. When we're in New York, we're going and we're sightseeing. When we're in New Orleans, we're going and we're sightseeing. Like we did the tour of Marie Laveau's tomb in last time we were in New Orleans. So like I don't understand why people just go sit in the green room and look at their phone. Like you're in a van for 7 hours before that looking at your phone. I'm trying to go see some stuff and eat some food. I'm trying to eat all these, at all these restaurants.
yeah, we're a foodie
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing.
Tour is a lot of driving and a lot of sitting on your phone and entertaining yourself. Um, the the 20 to 30 minutes that you're performing is like that's what it's all for. Like that's the best. It's the best feeling in the world. Anyone who's ever been on tour and played to people, like played their art to people, can attest to that. But there's a whole lot of not doing that and a whole lot of work around it that people don't really get to see. And frankly, a lot of it's pretty boring. Like you have a 7 hour drive, you listen to a podcast, you listen to an audiobook, and people in the back are taking naps, um, you know, watching anime on their phone, like Brian.
That's me, baby.
There's there's a lot of tour that is just can you find ways to entertain yourself and be cramped in a small area with the rest of your band. We've seen bands who fight and break up. We've seen bands who get along really well. Luckily, we get along really well, and things are pretty comfortable for us.
What's your favorite state that you've been to?
State. Mm. Mm.
On tour specifically?
Yeah, probably on tour.
I mean, God, I don't want to say this, but California just has so much stuff in it. Like, I have so many good memories of so many different parts of California, but it's almost not fair because California is so big that it has so many different cities that we've played in, and so many of our friends down there.
Right, like you can't
But
compare San Diego to Fresno and Redding, right? It's not the same.
It's not the same. I really like. I mean, as far as cities go that encompass that state, New Orleans, as I said, it's like that place is so cool. I freaking love walking around that place. And I'm not even like. I'm usually one to. I don't know why I'm like this. I'm usually one to be like, ugh, this place is dirty. But
You're dirty.
something about New Orleans, like it is totally dirty, but it's so cool. It's like it's got so much culture. It's got so much to do. It's like I like that place a lot. So I mean, like, yeah, Louisiana in that respect. What about you, Daniel?
The more I tour, the more I love Seattle.
Me too. I totally agree.
If you've ever been to Las Vegas or Phoenix in the middle of August, there is nothing that will make me crave gray, rainy weather than stepping outside in 118-degree heat, breathing it in, and having your lungs hurt.
Yeah.
I'm not built for that. Put me in the gray, and then you get a Seattle summer where everything's green, it's 80 and not a cloud in the sky, and
Perfect.
I'm lame. We've been everywhere. Seattle's the place for me.
I'm in full agreement. I honestly thought I would find somewhere that I would want to live more than Seattle. And there's only a couple places that I would actually even consider living at all. I guess San Diego is one of them, but it's super expensive. And it's a little hot for my taste.
Denver.
Denver's cool. Yeah, Denver's really cool, but it's like it's basically Seattle without water. I like water. So surprisingly, Minneapolis is really cool. The first time I went there, I got weird vibes, but I think Minneapolis is a really cool city. But I would not want to go there in the winter. That sounds brutal and terrible. Seattle just has perfect weather for me, I guess. I don't mind rain. I don't mind clouds, and it's worth it for the 4 months of perfect weather we have in the summer. So anyway.
That's sweet. It's home, so I kind of understand that. So earlier you mentioned you guys are big foodies. What's your favorite type of food or restaurant?
My favorite type of food, there's two answers. One, favorite regional cuisine is Indian food, by far. My favorite type of food is the tapas style restaurant. I don't know how people go to a restaurant and order a big thing. Like I want 50 small plates. I'm trying to eat a little bit of everything. I'm trying to combo this thing with 3 different sauces. I want as many different bites as I can possibly get.
Oh yeah. My favorite regional cuisine is probably Japanese, followed by Indian food. And some of our favorite restaurants that we go to on tour, we definitely have some stops that we make every single time we're in a certain city. So Portland, we go to Proud Mary Coffee. Dan, you can talk all about that if you want.
Shout out Proud Mary, best breakfast, best coffee in the States.
Seriously. We go to a place in Columbus, Ohio called Brassica. That place is really good. It's basically Mediterranean Chipotle, but like top tier ingredients.
Brassica. I'm a noob. I forgot.
Oh yeah, Brassica is the place. What else did we go to? We definitely have some. Oh, we go to Chiba Hut. Chiba Hut in Phoenix, in Vegas and stuff like that. Chiba Hut's like a weed themed sandwich shop that's down in that region of the country. It's a chain, but it's very delicious and it's not super expensive.
We actually played a show in Vegas outside of a Chiba Hut on our last tour.
We straight up played at a Chiba Hut. It was so sick.
And the funny thing is, 3 of us in the band are straight edge. We just like the sandwiches.
Yeah. Anyway, we got a lot of places. We try and dabble in whatever food is really good for the area. I personally really like ramen, like really authentic high-end ramen. That's really good, and that San Francisco has a lot of really good ramen. Um, and sushi. Sushi is my jam for real.
What is one thing you would change about the music industry?
Oh, I will tell you right off the top of my head, the clickiness of the touring industry. It does not matter how much you sound like a band or how good you are or what your following is. It matters if you're friends with somebody.
Not even that. If your agent or manager is friends with somebody.
Yeah, there you go. If
That's the
you know somebody to some extent.
Yeah.
And it's a bummer because there's a lot of good bands that I know of that don't have any connections like that, but they would be perfect for this tour. But there's just no way to get in before it's already been decided who's going to be going on tour with that band, who's going to be supporting it. And it's just a bummer because like I see the same bands on the same tours, and I'm like, I'm tired of this band. There's a million other good bands. Like, that's a good band, don't get me wrong. But they've toured with that other band a bunch of times. Why can't this other band tour with them? They sound just like them and they're really cool. It's just like, and they're bigger than that other band. I don't know. It's so cliquey. It's so closed off. Maybe I'm getting my frustrations out for a couple of things. What about you, Daniel?
That is a complicated question. I can't come up with a good answer on the spot. What you said is one of my big frustrations about the music industry.
For sure.
Just kind of, it's just kind of hard to get yourself into the cliques, and not even necessarily because the bands don't like you, but because you like a couple managers or agents kind of run the show, and if you're not in with that agent or that label or whatever, you just don't get the opportunities. And it's not to say like I'm trying to say we haven't had a good career and we haven't had a ton of good opportunities, but like there's lots of bands just get opportunities because their agents put these things into play a year in advance, and it just sucks for all the smaller bands, ourselves included, that are like trying to play to new people and get these chances, and it's just they're hard to come by.
Yeah, I know.
It's the same people.
Basically the way that we run our band is like we just assume nobody is going to care, and no one's going to give us anything, so we're just going to go out and make it happen for ourselves. If something cool comes up, great, we will drop everything and do it. But we spent a couple months in 2018 sitting around waiting because we were told something was going to come up and it never did. So I just told everyone, like, I'm not sitting around waiting anymore. We're going to go out. If no one's going to give us this, we're going to go out and take it, and we'll build our own empire. Like every dollar we've ever made just goes straight back into the band. Like we're tens of thousands of dollars each into the dream. So like it's never been about the money, but like the reality is, if we want to do this and keep doing it, eventually you have to make money doing it. Like we can't go on tour 6 months every year and make no money, and then not be able to come home and pay rent, pay mortgages and stuff. So it isn't like I'll never complain about not making money because that's not what it's about for me. But the reality is, at some point you have to make money, and the only way to do that is to get more and more exposure and to play to more people. So touring with other bands is a way to do that. So because we just assume no one is going to give us anything, we're going to just keep going out and working and taking it for ourselves.
Okay, so my last question for you are, what are your goals for the new decade of 2020?
Take over the world.
I would like to get to a point where we are playing on tours that we don't have to worry about whether or not the show is going to be good. Or at the very least, if we are worried about whether or not the show is going to be good, we're like, oh, maybe there's only going to be 100 people there. I would like to get to that point in this decade that we're playing tours, and that's just no longer something we have to think about. We no longer have to think, maybe there's not going to be anybody here tonight. And I mean, we haven't played a super shot show in a long time, and I'm very grateful for that. But we still played some small shows on tour when we're going out by ourselves, and that'll happen for a while. I recognize that, and I've recognized that my entire musical career, that you have to do that to transcend that. But I would really like to get to that point. We had a taste of it. We've had a taste of it on a couple of tours, and it's so sick. It's so nice. It's so cool to just like see a bunch of faces in front of you and be able to, it gives me so much more energy when I play live, when I'm playing to a bunch of people, and it makes it way more fun for me. It makes it way more rewarding, and it would be so nice to get to that point this decade.
Right. It's all relative though, because we played shows to 10 people where 10 people were, all about us and they knew all the words and they were super hyped and we had a great time. And then, we played shows to much bigger crowds where it just didn't go over well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I mean, the only way to grow as a band is to play to, opening slots for other people's fan bases, basically.
Pretty much.
So that's the goal.
Okay. Well, I personally can't wait to see what you guys do in the next decade, and I'm super excited for what you guys do, and I can't wait to see it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you for talking with me. It really does mean a lot to me. Thanks.
Of course. Cool.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you again. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll catch you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
If it's games you want, you got the best of me. With you looking the way you do. So I'll watch you on that stage with that pretty little frame. Oh God, I swear, what a gift to ride my fingers through that hair one last time. And I'm not here to get caught up in fans, so I'll keep what I can. Do you expect this to end again? Oh, she knows it too. The way she does this, the way she moves, always too much to take. ask me to, I'm back into it. Ready your hand in mine. I can only get so far without you by my side. Maybe I'll stay this hard. Whether you would ask me to, I'm back into it. Ready your hand in mine. I can only get so far without your guide. Whether you would ask me to, I'm back into it. Ready your hand in mine. I can only get so far without you by my side. Look me in the eyes, tell me how to find my way through. I know there's more to being confident than finding out how to talk to you. But it's not working out again, and I keep overanalyzing what I said. I'm not the person you'd expect of me yet. But I've been turned to know I haven't shown you yet. No, I haven't shown you yet. Maybe this is it, still ready to repeat again. Maybe this is what I need to keep me from getting it over my head. So don't act so surprised, no I'm not perfect. I'll keep it all inside, 'cause you're so worth the time. Consider this the reason that I'll stay for whatever you throw my way. Yeah, we're so breaking it, the feeling of letting it out. So I'll retain my balance between letting go and just running my mouth. Maybe this is it, still ready to repeat again. Maybe this is what I need to keep me from getting it over my head. Well, maybe it's just all again, and I thought that on a winning hand. Maybe this is just my way of waking up to begin again. I know it's not that wonderful to be your best on your own, but right now I don't know where else I'd rather go. She knows not what this picture holds, or who she's fated to sleep alone. But maybe this is right, and it's just not the time yet to say hello. No, it's just not the time yet to say hello. Oh, yeah. So once you try to say how you know that you're everything but on your own, maybe that will change the face of wherever we're meant to go. Maybe this is it, still ready to repeat again. Maybe this is what I need to keep me from getting it over my head. Well, maybe it's just all again, and I felt it on a winning hand. Maybe this is just my way of waking up to begin again, to begin again. We've grown so fast in a reality that's hardly built to last. Couldn't I still believe in something better? I'm not the first nor the last to be awake through every night, coming to terms with getting older. Well, maybe I'm still the same in your eyes, but you should know you're not in mine. But living in a shell unnoticed has put me out of line, unfocused. Still again, we were afraid of nothing. Will it be unspoken?
Again, that was the home team. I hope you enjoyed today's interview. I know I did. I had a great time talking with them. And again, check out their music